My name is Gary Blood. My age is 76. My birthday is the 2nd of February, 1947. Oh, I am 77.
Okay, so let's try this again.
Okay.
All right, so what's your name, age, and birthday?
My name is Gary Blood. My age is 77. My birthday is February the 2nd, 1947. I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania. My father was Paul C. Blood. My mother was Helen Louise Blood. I have two siblings. One is Mary Blood. The other was David Blood. They're both deceased. And a sister that was deceased, Judy Blood. I also had three other brothers and sisters that did not reach full term. My mother's parents' names was Mark James Goodnow and Nellie Goodnow. My grandmother died when my mother was 14 years of age, so I never knew her. My grandfather lived with us for a short period of time in my early youth, so I knew him vaguely. My grandfather on my father's side was Charlie Blood. I did not know him. He was dead before I was born. And my grandmother, I don't know what her name was. My father was very family oriented. His family was the most important thing to him. My mother was a homemaker. She never worked outside the home. They were both very strong Christian people and highly involved in their church. Like I said, they were family oriented, so my aunts and my uncles, there was many times of visiting back and forth with them. Our next door neighbors were close friends. We'd oftentimes sit on the front porch in the evenings and visit before TV. They were just very ordinary country folk. Christmas has to be my favorite. We had a tradition. It was always a special, magical time for me. We would take in the day before Christmas. In those days, people didn't put their trees up before Christmas, or rarely did they ever, because there was no such thing as fake trees in those days. So the leaves would all fall off. You put them off too early before Christmas. But Christmas Eve, we'd go down back with a sled and climb up on a hemlock tree and cut the top off, because they were always the most well-shaped. And put that on the sled and bring it home and set it up on the front porch outside. And then we would come in and they would take in and start to fix supper. We'd bring it in the house and put it in the living room so that the leaves could drop down, or the branches could drop down because of the heat. And then after supper, after the dishes were done, not before, and then we were going to start decorating. We would decorate them until it was time for me to go to bed. And then I had to go to bed. And the next morning when I would come down, the tree would be fully decorated, and I used to think it was the most beautiful tree in the world. And the thing I remember most is when my brother and my sister would both be home at the same time. My sister went away to college when I was in first grade. And when they were home, having the whole family together, we would play games and just have family time together. I started out in grade school going to Conneaut Valley High, and I went up to 8th grade. In 8th grade, my father got transferred on the railroad to Bellevue Senior High. And when I went to Bellevue Senior High, it was a nightmare. I went from a small country school where I knew everybody to a city school where all the cliques were established, and it was a totally different environment. I never belonged to any of the cliques. I knew very few people on graduation. I knew probably 10 people that I could speak to that I actually knew. I hated school with a passion. I almost flunked out in ninth grade, but my brother-in-law came home to visit, and I overheard him talking to my sister, talking about how brilliant my mind was. And I thought, well, maybe if I apply myself. And so from 10th grade to 12th grade, I was an honor roll student. I graduated in 1965. Greased down hair. I used to wash and blow dry my hair and then take hands full of Vaseline and put all over through my hair because the slick down look was the look. Bell bottom pants, hippie type of colors and stuff, none of which I usually wore. I was a nerd. And all afro hairstyles, beaded hairstyles, you know, short skirts, mini skirts, boots. That's pretty much it. I wanted to be a psychologist and do clinical testing. I never wanted to work with patients, but I like to work with theories and that type of thing. That's what my goal was. Wanda Smith in first grade. Mildred Van Dulik in second grade. And then those two got in a fight, so I didn't have anyone for third grade. Those are my crushes. I worked for a W.T. Grant company. Oh, Connie Stevens. Dan Metter. My brother and I weren't close, and we were in the same youth group together. Plus, I lived in a trailer park with him, and 5 other boys, and that was our gang that I grew up with through high school. It was driver's ed in high school. And our driver's ed teacher was an old man, and he would take us out driving, and he would fall asleep when we'd try to lose him. Go down roads and stuff, so when he woke up, he didn't know where we were. So that way we could get back to class late and not have to go to the next period. And he was the first one that I drove with. Prior to that, I drove tractor when I lived on our dairy farm with my father, when I was like probably 10 or 11. But that was the first vehicle I drove. You know, when I could reach the clutches on the tractors, that's when I started driving that. I met her in high school when she stalked me. And I remember a time in high school when I used to sit across from her in study hall, and her best friend that she mentioned earlier would sit there and cheat on their sheets in bookkeeping and exchange answers. And so therefore, that's why I took the paper. I don't remember erasing the answers. I may have, because my memory is kind of vague about that. But I do remember her raising her hand and reporting me to the teacher. I do remember that. And I do remember her being hysterical when I got sprayed by a skunk. Got engaged in December of 1970. We got married February the 6th in 1971. I remember when Kennedy was running for office, and the Christian community was so up in arms, including my folks, thinking of him being a Roman Catholic, that the priest would be the one that would be running America. I remember Kennedy being assassinated. I remember being in school when he was assassinated. I remember the Reagan administration years, and I remember his speech, "Take down that wall." You know, I remember Khrushchev when he was a threat to America and the communist country. I remember the Bay of Pigs. I remember, I'm trying to think, there was something else I was trying to think I could remember that was, I don't recall it now. The Vietnam War, but that was in a category all of its own. That's not. My childhood. Things were innocent. It was black, it was white, it had rules to go by. I felt secure. I had good friends. I had a loving family. Hard work. I had to work hard, but I learned a lot of responsibility and stuff. And that, when I think back to my days on the farm, that was probably the most secure and peaceful time of my life. It would have been in the early 50s, yeah. Early 50s up through the 60s. I'm really not good at anything I can think of.
Art.
No. I liked art, but I was never good at art.
Drawing. Art, I mean.
Gardening. Favorite animal would probably be a horse. And it would be probably black. And my favorite food would be stuffed peppers. That you can't look back and change the past. You have to look forward. The past is done. You live with the consequences of that, but you can't change it. So you have to move on. That had a sense of humor. Life is so serious, and regardless of the situation, if you get a person to laugh, it just makes it easier. Well, the birth of my children. Okay. Buying our first house. Our horses. Building a stable. Buying my first new car. Having my parents until later in life. It would be salvation. Life is very short in the scheme of time, and it goes by very quickly. And once you're gone, you're quickly forgotten, especially in this day and age. 2 weeks after you're gone, people no longer know you exist. So I would say to something that my mother used to have on the wall for a long, long time, and my advice to anyone would be, only one life will soon be past, and only what's done for Christ will last.